Thank everybody for being here. If you want to take your seats, we'll get set up here and we'll get started. Okay. Okay, you should have just been passed out something here briefly. Of course, first I want to introduce, for those of you that don't know, Mr. Bill Edens, who's our state attorney for our First Judicial Circuit. Donald Hartung, Sr., 58, has been arrested in connection with a triple homicide that occurred in the 4600 block of Deerfield Drive on July the 31st, 2015.
Hello, my friends. So, I think you probably remember a while ago, back in August, there was the supposed blue moon killings, which were in Escambia, Florida, and there was a sheriff, David Morgan, who had said that it was the fault of witchcraft. And when he was asked why he believed it was witchcraft, his response was, because the murders fell 3 days before a full moon. He associated the murders with witchcraft because of a blue moon, which occurs every 2.5 years. And in the 35 years that I've been practicing Wicca, it doesn't have anything to do with Wicca. The blue moon is an odd occurrence, but there's nothing really all that special about it. There's no specific ritual for a blue moon. So later on, when he was pressed more about this and asked what evidence there was, he said it was associated with the blue moon. Okay. He also said that there are arrangements of the bodies. Okay. And he also said that the person of interest was somebody who they believed practiced witchcraft. So he also made it very clear during a press conference that was recorded, that I did a video on, that this was speculative information.
Initial research has led us to believe that there's a potential that it was a ritualistic killing. The method of the murder, blunt force trauma, slit throats, positions of bodies, and then our person of interest has some ties to a faith and or religion that is indicative of that. Those of you that follow any of that will also note that the time of death, we believe on Tuesday, also coincides with what's referred to as a blue moon, which occurs every 3 years. And again, this I want to let everyone know that while this is a part of our case file, something that we are pursuing at this time because it has a potential, it is still in the speculative stage. I want to let everyone know that while this is a part of our case file, something that we are pursuing at this time because it has a potential, it is still in the speculative stage.
The media picked up on this, and everybody started talking about it, and they took out the speculative part, and they just ran with the whole witchcraft thing.
There are still a lot of unanswered questions in the triple murder in Pensacola linked to witchcraft by Escambia County Sheriff David Morgan.
So you saw titles like witchcraft killings and witchcraft murder over a blue moon and all of these things that painted everybody who practices witchcraft in a very bad light. And we even had people like Kyle Lewinsky, who was just making fun of witches.
The man suspected of the murders was known to have practiced witchcraft, and there's a certain percentage of the population that really believes in this stuff. And they believe in witchcraft, they believe in voodoo, they believe in sorcery.
And it's been very difficult for us to talk to every single person, say, look, even if this person is a practicing witch, it doesn't mean that they killed these people because of witchcraft. And this is the point that I really, really want to drive home. If you are a practicing Jew, if you are a practicing Christian, if you are a practicing Muslim, Hare Krishna, Buddhist, or whatever, that is your religious choice. What you do, if you are a crook, if you kill somebody, if you rape someone, if you embezzle money, it doesn't mean it's because you were that particular religion. It means that you made some really bad choices, you did something illegal, and you're going to have to suffer the consequences of it. Your religion really doesn't have anything to do with it. So there are certain events that can happen that can be related to one's particular religion, but the details in this case have not really led to any conclusive evidence so far that has been presented that I've heard that leads these murders to be associated with witchcraft. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to play you a couple of pieces of the full news conference that they gave, that the sheriff Morgan gave to the press. Then afterwards, I'm going to show a news clip of it, and then I'm going to show you an interview. And I want to really emphasize that David Morgan, the sheriff of Escambia, Florida, is really pushing this hypothetical of this witchcraft killings for what I can only assume is his own personal bias. And the media, again, is picking up on this. And because it's around the Halloween season, I'm afraid more people are going to just run with this story. Of course, it's already kind of lost some of its momentum, which is pretty good. At the very end of this video, I will also have a link to a video which will play the whole 16-minute press conference, so you can see the whole thing unedited for yourself if you are so inclined. The portion that I'm going to show, I have edited for time constraints.
The victims, all deceased, were Von Seal Smith, 77, Richard Smith, 49, and John Smith, 47. Hartung, the son of Mr. Smith and half-brother of Richard and John, will be charged with 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. The Escambia County Sheriff's Office Homicide Division, in partnership with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, the Department of Homeland Security, and the state attorney, were able to use forensic and other evidence leading to Hartung's arrest. Hartung is being held without bond in the Escambia County Jail.
And our office has determined that we will, in fact, seek the death penalty in this case.
Again, please bear with us, and the answers that we can give you will answer to the fullest that we possibly can at this time.
Sheriff, can y'all give us an idea of what evidence was determined that links the half-brother to the killing?
Primarily dealt with the physical evidence. The DNA in this particular area, understand I'm not a DNA expert. Obviously, we depended upon the Florida Department of Law Enforcement for this. But because of the DNA stranding that they have to do, we're talking about all individuals that were related to each other. And so therefore it took, additional testing, if you will, to separate out specific DNA, and that was part of the time. But the volume of this evidence, it took almost 5 days to process the crime scene.
Was that the reason for the quick action? Why did you feel like this needed to be pushed through in such a quick manner?
In deference to the family and for those who are surviving, a triple homicide is an anomaly. The murder itself, as I've told you, I don't concern myself as much with motive, because again, we really don't, for my area of this, in law enforcement, we don't really care so much as to why you did it, just the fact that it did occur.
So right here, he's saying that he doesn't care what the motive is, he only cares about what actually happened.
Amber?
Yes, with this, in the beginning, we talked about it possibly being related to witchcraft. What kind of brought that about through investigation?
There were actually 3 prevailing theories that we were looking at, Amber, that you do in the, getting together, and hopefully that will assist in to the conclusion of the case. We were looking at, was the DHS angle a part of, a motive for this? Was the fact that Mr. Hartung, was engaged in that? And the reason why I say that is there were some statements that he had made, and there was some evidence found at his home.
So one of the things that they're saying is because he admitted that he practices witchcraft, or alluded to it somehow, that they're using this as evidence that these murders was because of witchcraft? Am I the only one who sees this ridiculous red herring It doesn't matter what religion he is. If he's found guilty of it, he committed these triple murders, it does not matter what religion he is.
That clearly indicated that tie-in. And that will come out, and I won't speak to that issue. That's more in what Mr. Eden's side will do as this case progresses. And then lastly, a motive for possibly financial gain. So those were the three prevailing ones that we had. And so, is that still in play? Yes, it is. But again, you're now speaking to an area that, Mr. Edens and his folks, we lateral the ball at that point.
So it's safe to say, really, the motive is still something that's being looked at in this.
When you get into that area, I'm going to defer that to the State Attorney's Office.
We will review all aspects of the case as we move forward to ensure that the proper motive is addressed. There are some indications of what the motive is. Those will become clear as initial paperwork is made public. I really would not go into those at this time, but as the sheriff said, there are 2 or 3 possibilities, and all of those will be explored and narrowed down when the case is presented in court.
And the motive is still open. They don't know what the motive is. That is what I am really trying to emphasize. They don't know what the motive is. They have a couple of theories, and they're really pushing this one theory because of this sheriff's personal bias. But to be honest, when it comes down to it, in a court of law, they don't know what the motive is yet.
Is he claiming his religion or anything like that had anything to do with that?
Really can't go into that at this time.
Bill, you had multiple murder weapons. Have you recovered all the murder weapons and DNA'd them and fingerprinted or whatever else?
We haven't indicated there were multiple murder weapons.
Okay, yeah. Well, I really can't.
This sheriff is either really bad at press conferences, or he's very smart and he is subtly giving information to the press. If you turn the audio up enough in this press conference, you might not be able to do it in this video, but if you do it in the press conference, you can hear what the sheriff is telling the state attorney. That is very, very bad. Like the state attorney Bill just did, he should move away from the microphone, then whisper in his ear. If you whisper in someone's ear next to a microphone, they will hear what you are saying. And he's not being very quiet about what he's whispering. It's actually kind of a low talk.
Offered any statement since the arrest?
I can't speak to that issue. If Mr. Edens wanted to speak to it, he may, but I certainly wouldn't speak to that.
I can't speak to that issue either. And I hope you understand that we're very constricted about our ability to discuss the facts and circumstances of a pending homicide case. We can talk in generalities and can answer some of the questions, but I personally have an ethical obligation to ensure that he has the opportunity to have a fair trial.
So what they're saying is that they don't want to run with any speculative information. They only want to stick to the facts because now it has moved from the preliminary, the investigation, to the prosecution stage of this person who they believe did these murders, and now this person is going to trial. So you don't want to give erroneous information or speculative information that will ruin the case. But he emphasizes the witchcraft element yet again. And he is the only person who's pushing this. The state attorney is not pushing this.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. Well, the 3-month-long investigation of the so-called witchcraft triple murders is over.
Donald Hartung Jr. is charged with murdering his family. Hartung is the son of Von Seal Smith and half-brother of Richard and John Smith. He's charged with 3 counts of first-degree premeditated murder. Channel 3's Amber Southern is at the Smith home on Deerfield Drive with more on this investigation.
Haven't determined a motive, but they're looking into whether financial gain or Richard Smith's job with the Department of Homeland Security played a role. In earlier interviews, Morgan said it appeared the 3 could have been murdered in a witchcraft ritual based on the timing of the blue moon and the positioning of the victims' bodies.
Based on the timing of the moon and the position of the bodies. They're still running with this. There's only 3 pieces of evidence that they have that this is even remotely has anything to do with witchcraft. One, supposedly it happened around a blue moon, which is very, very bad evidence. The positioning of the bodies, whatever. I don't understand how these positions of the bodies could be associated with witchcraft. And the third one is because they found witchcraft paraphernalia around this person's home, and apparently he seems to be a follower of witchcraft. That is about it.
There were some statements that he had made, and there was some evidence found at his home that clearly indicated that tie-in.
I think what grabbed a lot of national media attention was the witchcraft and the vulgarity of the actual crime scene.
It's still an element of that. You know, now it's with the state attorney's office. I can tell you that a tremendous amount of evidence has been gathered, which is part of that. You know, the witchcraft angle. It's certainly there. It's now with the state attorney's office to use as they deem fit. You know, again, we're even more restricted in discussing the issue now because it's in the prosecutorial phase. But there's a tremendous amount of evidence in that area. You know, photos, you know, items, physical evidence that's been taken into custody. That again, will it play significantly now in the prosecution? We're not sure. But again, we looked at everything from the DHS side where we were concerned that there was a national security issue. We didn't know at that case. So, you know, there were, if you recall, Amber, there were several days went by before we held a press conference and talked to the community about a triple homicide. Why? Because we had to give our federal partners an opportunity to eliminate any potential or possibility of that, which could have national security implications. So therefore, that part of the case had to be delayed. And then once, you know, that was cleared, we move on to the next phase. And then the other prevailing theories had to do with, again, you know, was witchcraft involved? Was it primarily a crime involving, you know, family fortunes, etc.? Was, you know, money a motive? And those things are still a part of this case. And again, we now turn that over to the state attorney's office.
Are you guys? I know it's been turned over to the state attorney's office, and now it's, you know, an investigation on their side. But the thing that pointed it out to kind of being witchcraft in the first place, can you still talk about the reasoning for that?
Specifically, no. There, you know, there were several prevailing theories about, you know, the timing of the homicide, self-admissions made by the individual, and I have to be careful at this point, Amber, because
one thing I'd really like to emphasize is this reporter's name is Amber. In the press conference, he calls on Amber again, and Amber is the one who brings up this witchcraft angle.
Amber?
Yes, with this, in the beginning we talked about it possibly being related to witchcraft. What kind of brought that about through investigation?
We can literally say things at this point that will now exclude evidence. So any specific statements or inference that we know of now of our, you know, suspect, Mr. Hartung, who's in custody, if I now make a misstatement, then that can affect the outcome of the trial. But again, suffice it to say that all of the statements that we made up front involving this case were certainly elements of this case that have been thoroughly investigated and now have been turned over to the state attorney's office.
Hopefully this is the last we've heard about it. I am very glad that they finally caught the person who committed these murders, and I again am very sorry to the friends and family of these 3 individuals, and I hope that that justice is served and that you do find some kind of peace in all of this. And I'm sorry that this whole media circus has been going on around you, because you definitely don't need that while you're also dealing with the loss of your family and friends. Anyhow, this has been Lilokin. Thank you, and blessed be.